right, Mr. Sammy McKamie, thank you for being on the Elite Agent Talk. You are the first guest to be on here for the second time. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, can you believe that it's been almost 3 years since we last did our first episode?
Well, I mean, lots changed in 3 years for both of us, but yeah, that's crazy. It doesn't seem that long.
Yeah, a lot has changed, but some things have stayed the same. I still remember that conversation vividly. You shared with us the importance of marketing. You gave us a little, and I always talk to agents because I get this question a lot where agents ask me like, "Hey, how much percent of my income should I be spending on marketing?" And I didn't really have like a solid number, but you said 25%, and I've been telling agents that, and I was doing the math, and I think you were spot on there. So thanks for that advice.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I mean, my new advice is as much as you can, right?
Especially
Um,
now.
yeah. I mean, listen, if you're not marketing now with all the things that the company has got from a compensation standpoint, I'm not sure you would ever market. So, yeah, I think my new stance would be as much as you can afford and
Mm,
as many staff people as you have to support it.
as much as you want to grow.
That's true. Yeah. Growth is good.
So, yeah, tell us a little update with your agency. From 3 years ago, you had a successful, huge agency, but what's kind of like the big picture of how your agency looks today?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, a lot's changed, right? People come and go, but we're in the talent acquisition business, so we're always looking for new talent, and we've got a great team. So right now, with COVID, we've got people in house, people working remote. I've got employees in Houston, Washington, but if you called the office, you would think everybody is still completely 100% in office. The agency's obviously grown financially. So we've got two sides of our agency. We've got our farmers agency and then our commercial book of business. I think collectively we're around 28 million in gross written premium. That continues to grow. Our staff continues to grow. I think we're up to 12 people now to support that. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be in the insurance business.
Wow. Yeah, you've grown quite a bit.
Well, we've been marketing quite a bit.
Because last time we talked 3 years ago, I think it was 18 million.
Yeah. So our commercial book's seen considerable growth. Our personal lines book has seen uh, considerable growth. So, on both sides of the coin, we continue to grow. But again, you and I are of the same mindset. The only way to grow is to market. So, if you're not marketing, it's tough to grow.
Yeah. Wow. So, what are some, and your agency is based in Texas,
Yeah. So we're in
and
Dallas, Texas. We're in the heart of, the place where it's, increasingly difficult to write business, but, we just simply try to find a way, right?
yeah. What are some of the challenges that is in the market right now, would you say?
Well, I mean, a lot. We've got some of the challenges that some of the other countries are dealing with, like as far as the loss of a carrier, right? We just lost the signature product, and that was a big part of our auto success. But it's not everything. We've got underwriting issues are in Texas. As far as Dallas Fort Worth, it's increasingly difficult to place business just because we have this thing called hail
Mhm.
that comes around or tornadoes that come around and wreak havoc. So, we've seen minimum deductibles, go from 1% to 2%, go to 1.5%. So, I mean, like the rest of the country, we've had our challenges, but, it's simply, we try to treat them like a lawnmower. We just try to run over them.
You're telling me about that. You don't go around them, you just go through them, huh?
That's the only way sometimes, it's sometimes it takes too long to go around them. You just have to try to go through them.
So how many years have you been in business now?
Oh man, let me think about this. I started my agency March of 99. So, be 24 years this month.
Wow. Yeah. Congratulations,
Making me
man.
feel old, Dan, making me feel old.
No, making you feel wise.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I like that. I have a lot of admiration for all your stuff, man. It's very positive. very uplifting, to even watch what you've gone through in California, and you just stay committed. I mean, definitely a lawnmower agency over there in California.
Yeah, I mean, with all your experience, would you say, has there ever been a time when there's been more changes than the last
Man, I
year or
can't
six
think of I
months?
can't think of any. I mean, we've had a season to where we had a moratorium where we couldn't write business effectively for homeowners for a time period.
Oh, you did?
Uh,
Okay, wow. That's
that
crazy.
was extremely difficult. But I can't think of a time where the industry, and not just farmers, I think that's where we lose focus. But I can't think of a time where the actual insurance industry has seen so much change. You've seen carriers withdraw from markets, carriers stop writing in markets. I mean, you've seen deductible changes, massive rate swings, but I think everybody's, adjusting to the same thing. And I think for us as captive agents, for farmers agents, we always think all the problems exist in our office and not anywhere else. But I've got a lot of great relationships with, other captive agents, independent agents, and everybody's dealing with the same thing. Just the name on the outside of the door is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of the things that you'd like to share as far as agents struggling with these changes or really having a hard time just accepting what's going on or moving on or adapting? How do you deal with changes? Really, just go through them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not like superhuman. I mean, I obviously, internalize the change. I mean, it's like that same mindset. Like we all have that same mindset, like, oh, this is it. This is the thing that's going to sink the ship, right?
Hmm.
I think that's a normal feeling to have. But then the people that are competitive, the people that, find a solution, their mind immediately shifts to, okay, this is the situation. How do I solve the problem, right? And sometimes that problem's solved quickly. Sometimes it takes a little bit to figure out. But I think that's where I try to spend most of my time, is not focused on the problem, but just figuring out, okay, how do I overcome the problem and create an effective solution? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people in my office that are counting on me, just like they're counting on you and the rest of the agency staff. They're looking at you saying, okay, look, given the situation, how do we solve it, right? But I think doing shows like this and listening to agents that you bring on, or even just kind of following you personally, there's a lot of wisdom in what people have to say. So, no matter what season you're at in your agency, whether you're brand new or you're like me, an old guy, 24 years, you can always get something out of it. But yeah, I think it's just solution based versus problem based. I don't spend a lot of time on the problem. I just immediately start thinking, okay, what's the solution? Because the solution is the key to success.
Yeah, find a solution, and I think that's really important that you touched on is to be really careful of who you're listening to out there too.
Yeah, I had a mentor of mine. He's a West Texas boy. I'll never forget kind of what you said. You hear things and you don't forget them. He's like, man, don't let anybody pour any dirty water down your pipes. Because
Mm.
there's a lot of dirty water floating around on some of these social media pages about the company in general. And, if you stay attached to that, it's eventually going to contaminate you.
Yeah, because Sammy, I don't know if you, we kind of touched on it, but I don't think ever been a time where more people are shopping.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the key, right? A lot of people are looking at this situation and saying, "Woe is me," right? But they're only focused on 15% of the problem. When I say 15% of the problem, what I'm talking about is in any market that we operate in as farmers agents, farmers might have 15% of the market share. Maybe in your state it's a little more, but we focus on that 15%, but we ignore the 85%. The 85% are the people that are dealing with the same thing. It's just a different logo on the paper, that are basically begging somebody to get in their inbox or get on their social media feed or get in their mailbox and say, hey, help me find a solution. Because I know my clients are shopping. I mean, I see people canceling. My team, tracks the cancellations. So I know my 15% is shopping, but I also know the other 85% is actively shopping as well. It's just up to you as an agent to, figure out how to get in front of them and offer a different solution.
Wow. That's a great way of looking at it. That's a huge population that we have access, well, we have opportunity to help. And I think that's so true because I was kind of down on how much of my book of business was getting non-renewed. But then I found out how much book of business was getting non-renewed in the state with different carriers. It's like so much more bigger than what is happening in just my book of business. So contact rates are higher, more people are shopping. I think, like you said, there's it's just been so much more activity out there that the agents that are really looking to grow, it's actually a great time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's normal, right? And I don't want to dismiss. I don't want agents to be like, oh man, they don't have any problems in Texas. They don't have any problems in California. They're big agents. No, we have the same problems everybody else has. It's just, whatever you focus on, you get full of, right? So if I'm focused on the problem, I'm going to be full of the problem. But if I'm focused on the solution and how to overcome the problem, then that's where you can actually get full of a positive solution. So I guess what I'm saying is I personally feel like right now, as difficult as it is with the things that we're dealing with as farmers agents, I think it's probably the best opportunity to grow our book of business simply by just increasing our marketing spend. So, in difficult times, I've always said this, in difficult times, there's really two type of agents. There's accountants, which say, okay, I'm going to stop marketing because, rates are up and I'm losing business and I'm going to stop marketing. I'm going to maybe lay Sally off or John off because, I need to cut the fat or to trim the budget. And then there's agents that are entrepreneurs that say, look, when those agents scale back, I'm going to ramp up and I'm going to kind of push all in because I know that there's probably less people marketing to a wider audience that's simply looking for a solution. So I've always advocated, be the entrepreneur, not the accountant. In difficult times when there's a lot of activity happening with carriers taking rate increase, now is the time to be marketing at whatever, however you market, right? If you're not in now, then you're going to miss it. You're going to look back in a couple of years and say, man, I missed a huge opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, really well said. I think they say that when everybody is scared, that's the best time to be greedy. And then vice versa. When everybody is greedy, that's the time to be scared. I think that's Warren Buffett. But yeah, a lot of agents are scared right now, and they're not marketing and they're holding back. And I think that causes less competition to be out there. But at the same time, the demands have never been higher. So yeah, speaking of marketing, I mean, when it comes to marketing, you personally, you've helped me so much with ideas and how to market. But where should we start? I mean, let's and we can maybe bleep this out, but when it comes to marketing spend, maybe I asked you last time too, but how much do you personally spend at your agency when it comes to marketing?
Well, we've ramped up our spend. So I mean, we used to just say 25%, but now that it's no secret, like the closing ratio is down, right? Like we're not closing as much business as we used to because of the rate, but our contact ratio is way up. So maybe our closing ratio is down because, we've got a bunch more calls coming in that are altering that deal. But I mean, let's just say that we spend quite a large amount marketing, but it also makes quite a large amount of money. So I would say that it equals out. And it's funny because people always ask me, what's your contact rate on this type of marketing or that type of marketing? I simply ignore that. Like I'm not worried about the contact rate. I'm worried about the return of capital. It's the same agents that are probably measuring their agency's success in PIF still. I'm measuring it in premium because ultimately the premium and the return of capital is what keeps the lights on.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes there's so much metrics, but it's just like, okay, well, the contact rate could be good, but if you're not closing enough, it's just like, how much are we selling? How
Right.
much
Yeah.
premium are
Ultimately,
we
it
selling?
comes down to sales, right? Like, look, it's great to have a great contact rate, but if all you're doing is talking to people, while that's important, it's ABS, always be selling. So, our goal is get them on the phone, present a solution, try to close, and go from there. And you mentioned me helping you. I mean, I can't tell you how much you helped me just by simply, like automation. That's something we weren't doing before I talked to you. And you talk about just throwing leads in the trash. We weren't keeping leads in our back stock to recirculate, next year, next 6 months, and having those things on automatic pilot. So that's really been a great shift in our agency, just being able to, if we send out, hypothetically, we get 100 calls and we write 20. Well, in the past, we weren't really managing those 80, right? But because we, now turned automation on and we created a system, we can now simply, put those people in and X date them, and it automatically hits them up in 6 months if we're doing our part and keying the data in. So, we're seeing leads contact us that we, sent out last year or 18 months ago, just because it constantly reminds them, hey, we're still here. Like, your auto's up for renewal. Would you like for us to give you a quote? It's yes or no. I mean, it's a real simple question. And if they say no, it's fine, because it didn't cost us anything. We've already paid for that, in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to John at Little Giant Marketing.
That's right, John. He's the GOAT.
Yeah, he's made a huge difference, game changer from agency too. But so what is your go-to marketing when it comes to spending money on paid marketing?
Yeah, I mean, we've kept it simple, and it seems archaic, but our agency's kind of gone all in, throughout the years in different forms of direct mail, whether that's, direct mail to, personal lines clients, whether that's direct mail to commercial leads. That's kind of always been our go-to. And I'll tell you, like, a lot of people think it's dead, right? Direct mail is dead. You'll see that a lot, right? But I will tell you, it's sustained any sort of environment that I've seen in 24 years. So, if interest rates go up, people are still shopping for a better solution. If the economy's in the tank or the economy's at an all-time high, people are still shopping for a solution. So, in my opinion, as ancient as it sounds, direct mail is still alive and thriving. So that's kind of our niche, is direct mail. Now, we've shifted it from time to times, right? You've got to know where to lead. And you and I talked about this. So if you're in a state that, maybe auto's not hot right now, right? You want to lead with home and just cross-sell the auto. If you're in a state where it's just the opposite and perhaps, home's not hot, well, lead with the auto then. So, but anywhere there's data, there's opportunity. That's the way I've always approached it. I think that's what we talked about 3 years ago. Like, you can give me some data and it's something we have an appetite for, I'm going to try my best to get it in somebody's hands and get the opportunity to at least present a quote.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like auto is not hot right now.
Well, you're dealing with that, right?
Yeah, so would you say that you mostly do for homes?
Yeah, so our target right now is the same as it's been for a while. We're targeting homes by renewal date, and then just trying to get them on the phone. And then we're obviously not going to not quote the auto, right? But we've got to realize where we're strong and where we're not. But we're always trying to multi-line the sale. I mean, I think if you're not, you're just wasting opportunity. But we're happy getting the home and X-dating the auto for a later date when the market turns, because what I've seen is this market turns and it turns fast.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have carriers come out and say, hey, on Wednesday, we're no longer writing this line of business, effective on the 1st. And it could be the 20th. On the 1st, we're taking, 20% rate increase. I mean, there's a major carrier in my market right now that I've seen their home renewals, and their home renewals are 40% plus. So again, when you're thinking about marketing, don't think about your 15 or 20% that's exist in your agency. Think about that 80% that you're missing, because, somebody's going to get it. It might as well be you.
That's right. Love that. So do you use like a specific company, or how does that work when it comes to looking for a direct market? How do agents get into direct mail?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of vendors out there, right? And we've kicked the tires on a lot of vendors. I do use a specific company. We can link it at the end of the video, or however you want to do it. I'm happy to share it. The one thing that I think, if I'm looking for a vendor, right, The things that are important to me would be exclusivity. I want to make sure it's kind of like buying an internet lead, right? You know that they're going to sell it to you and maybe two other brands, right? But in direct mail, it's very important, in my opinion, that you make sure that the lead you're buying is only being sold to you. It's not being sold to you, a Allstate agent, and an independent agent, because then that dilutes your efforts.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was looking for something, I'm looking for three things: exclusivity. Obviously, price is important, but it's not the first thing I look at. It's probably the last thing. So I'm looking at exclusivity. I'm looking at simplicity in the process, like how much involvement do I have to have as an agent? I want to do the least amount possible, right? Like I don't want to spend my time, building out a huge campaign. I want the company to help me build the campaign, right? Like what zip codes to market, and things like that. And then I think the most important thing is innovation. You want to have a company that has, not only a good presentation piece, but they're innovative in the way in which they can reach the client, or more importantly, the way the client can then in turn reach you. And I didn't listen to our video from 3 years ago, but I think we started touching on innovation because it was right around the time of COVID, if I remember right. It was was it before COVID hit or after COVID hit?
It was right when it hit April of 2020.
Yeah. So I think I told you, like one of the things that they started providing, which in my opinion was very
The QR codes, huh?
innovative, was the QR code,
I
right?
remember that.
So they're still doing the QR code, and again, 4 years ago, if you would have put a QR code on there, people would have struggled to figure out how to interact with it, right? But the consumers, they want simplicity. They don't want to get on the phone, spend 30 minutes. They simply, with this generation, for the most part, they're happy to get a quote over the internet, or over the points for direct mail, because that's, what I'm good at. Those would be the keys, right? Just, innovation, exclusivity, print material is very important. But in my opinion, if you're innovative and you're exclusive, print material becomes probably the third thing on the list, and then pricing will be the last.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing the vendor that you're using. I'm really excited to share that with my audience. But what are some realistic, like, close, if you get a direct mail quote, obviously it depends on the state and what type of products you have and how competitive it is. But what are some like common questions agents have? I'm sure they kind of want to know, like, okay, after I start launching a campaign, when would I start getting the first call? And then once I start getting calls, like what type of like closing ratio can I expect, even though it totally depends on the skill of the producer and the products and so many other things, but some just general things you could share about what a successful or typical campaign will look like.
Yeah, so I'll kind of give you my take on it, right? Like, and everybody's different, and like you said, every market's different. And I'll read on social media from time to time, and it's like, these leads stink. And I'm thinking, well, is it the lead or is it the person selling the lead, right? Because
Right.
it takes two, right? But if I'm building out a campaign, or in general, any new marketing, whether you're doing internet leads, whether you're doing live transfers, direct mail, ad campaigns. I mean, my personal opinion is, in any campaign you build, you can't be one and done. Meaning, you can't just say, I'm going to build this campaign and expect great things to happen. And in month one, I'm going to make 100% return on investment, right? I think that's very unrealistic. I think if it happens, it's wonderful, right? We're all searching for that silver bullet. I haven't really found a lot of silver bullets out there. I've had to kind of make my own silver bullets, but so I would say time, right? Like any campaign you do and any type of marketing you do, I mean, I would say 3 months is a good feeling out process to figure out, like, is this sustainable? What tweaks or adjustments do I need to make to my campaign to make it more successful? It's funny because, a lot of agents have asked me, well, what's your call response, or how many calls do you get, or how many clicks do you get, or how many, QR code scans do you get? And honestly, while I could probably measure it, I don't really get wrapped up in that. Like, I get wrapped up in, how much are we spending and how much are we making? And I'll tell you, like, I think it's, very difficult to say you're going to spend, I'm just going to give a round number, 10,000, right?
Hmm.
And expect to make 15 the first month. I mean, if you do, fantastic, right? But I would expect if I spent 10, I want to make 7,500. Like, I know that might sound crazy to a lot of people who are going to watch this. Like, wait, he's okay losing money. I am, because what I'm focused on is the long-term vision, right? The growth of the agency long-term. So I think you have to have realistic expectations, right? And I think as agents, sometimes either we've been burned on different type of marketing. So we're like, we're never going to market again, no matter how good the opportunity sounds. Or maybe you've hit a home run in the past and you think every marketing campaign should be a home run. But, I'm okay hitting doubles and triples, right? I don't have to hit a home run on every single opportunity. And that's what I was saying. Like, I think realistically, like if you were going to spend any type of money doing marketing, I think if somebody said for every dollar you give me, I give you back 75% right up front. And then 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, I'm going to keep paying you a residual. I mean, that's what we all signed up for, right? Like, if you signed up to be get paid up front and never get paid on renewals, you could be like a goosehead agent. But in reality, we all signed up to be, for residual income. That's the bread and butter of what we do, especially on the personal line side.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think in a lot of agents really would help out thinking that way. It's not about making money this folio, but looking at next year's folio and the year after that's folio and just thinking long term. How could they just become better at that? I think it's almost to a point where you don't want to look at too much numbers. And again, like you said, don't be the accountant. Almost go off, just feel and or what other ways can we kind of look at the bigger picture and make it more of an investment, and think long term.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. Like, I know for a large part of the agent population, just speaking exclusively farmers for a second, we're all under some new business accelerator bonus, right? So, if you made 75% month one and it helps you hit your bonus, really, how much did you make, right? Maybe you made over 100%.
Yeah, maybe dollar
Um,
fifty. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think in the environment that we're in, we have to really strategically think, even if I made 50% of what I spent, 10,000 in, 5,000 back, if I'm hitting 100% bonus, now I'm dollar for dollar, right?
Hmm.
So I think, using that math, I mean, again, it's kind of hard to lose right now. Like, unless you just, are putting ads on grocery carts or something. Like, I think it's hard to lose if you've got a really viable marketing plan in place, because, there's agents who are getting more than 100%. You've got, these agents that, signed on and they're getting, 200% for the first year or whatever. So, I mean, for those agents, man, get on the gas, like market as much as you can and capture as much business as you can to ride you out when that shuts off. And that's our focus. Like, we're so heavily focused on new business. Why? Because that's where we're being driven because of the compensation scale. So, when I said earlier, if you were spending 25% of your budget on marketing, I changed that to spend as much as you can, because the more you spend now, the more you make month one. Like, I mean, that proposition doesn't exist in a lot of agencies where, you have the opportunity to make, 200% commission, your original commission plus another 100%. So, I think that's the mind shift that needs to be taking place. But too many agents are focused on, well, I had Dan's business for 7 years and he just canceled. Well, hey, you know what? Dan's just one Dan. Like, I'm trying to get 5 Dans. And that's our whole focus is, while we're sensitive to the clients we're losing, right? Because, we built relationships. We know that the reason they're leaving is out of our control. And instead of focusing on things we don't have control of, we've just turned our focus on the things that we are in control, that we have control over, which is new business and how to get people, in our door.
Yeah, and the more of a bigger book of business you have, it's like you have to even do more of it now.
Yeah, no, it's got to be scalable, right? Like, any
Hmm.
sort of marketing, as you grow, that's the goal, right? You know, I've never met an agent that says, no, I only want to make X amount of dollars. I never want to make any more than that. Like, if that's their mindset, then they're probably, they're probably not long for this business, because you've got to be growth oriented, because it takes a lot of time and effort. I mean, whether you're the 5 a.m. club or the 8 p.m. club, right? I mean, it takes a lot of your personal sacrifice to build a successful agency. So what you want to make sure of is that you're deploying your assets, and whether they're your employee assets or your marketing assets, you're deploying your assets to, reap a big harvest, 6 years from now, a long-term vision, not short-sight vision.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. But I almost look at marketing as like having your money work for you, kind of, because you just put your money in, and then the staff, obviously, that's, concept too, that, you're having people work for you. But that's the situation you probably want to be in, is where you're making smart decision, putting money in the right places. And then what better place to put your money in than your own business, where you have the most control over.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, and I've had this conversation with a lot of agents. Maybe they've thought about purchasing an agency, and I'm like, well, how much is it going to cost you to purchase that? And they'll say it's going to cost me X. I said, well, what would happen if you invested X in your own agency? Maybe you hired 2 new producers and turned on a big marketing plan. What do you think the return is there? And they're like, I've never thought of it that way, right? So I'm big on just making sure that whatever we're doing as the agency grows, that whatever marketing we're doing is scalable, because as you grow, so do the amount of customers that you have to replace to continue to grow. Because I've yet to see this law of large numbers, to where the runoff on an annual basis gets smaller and smaller. It seems to stay somewhat consistent. So it just makes the day one number even bigger. When I say day one, if you had 10,000 policies, I look at that and say, okay, I got to go replace 2,000 that are potentially going to leave because of rate or cancellations or moving or whatever. So when that number goes to 20,000, if you're fortunate enough to get to 20,000 policies, well, now all of a sudden you got 4,000 to go replace. So the problem just gets bigger. But if you have a scalable solution, you can just ramp up your scale to overcome the problem.
Yeah, and scalable, that's super important too, because there's certain marketing that you just can't do more of, you know, and you can't be at so many different places at once. And it's just so much better to be able to just put money into it, because what good is it if you just have money in the bank right now? You know,
That ain't getting you much
so
better.
might as well use that money and then have it go to work for us. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Do you think it just takes, you know, I think it's good for agents to hear from agents like you, just they kind of need that little like courage, you know, they kind of need to know that it is going to work. So I think it's good to share how great your agency has become. Because when did you start marketing? Was it from the first year, or were you always marketing focused, or what type of like history do you have with marketing with your agency's history?
Well, I mean, I told you how long I've been in the business, right? So we could do the math. But when I was 16 and started this agency, I'm just kidding.
You're looking good, but it might be a stretch.
So, but in reality, I'll never forget it. Like my wife at the time, I started the agency. I was just out of college. I had other jobs, but nothing to where I was an entrepreneur, right? I could probably barely spell entrepreneur at the time. It was a mind shift to go from full-time college student to full-time agency owner, right?
Mhm.
I still wanted to sleep till 11, come in at 12, take a 2-hour lunch and go home at 5 and expect something magical to happen. What I quickly realized is nothing happens with that type of work ethic, right? So you got to be willing to put the time, effort, and energy in to be successful. But I remember telling her, I'm like, man, this district manager, he just fed me a line. Like, there's no way that I'm going to make the kind of money he said I was going to make. And she's like, well, what are you doing? It was a very eye-opening experience for me for somebody to hold you accountable in the minute, to say, well, what are you doing to make it happen?
Mm.
And in that moment, I was like, well, I'm not really doing my part, right? I'm not working the hours I need to work to say if something's going to, succeed or fail. So that was the mind shift for me. That was the moment for me where it kind of just all kind of clicked. And I said, okay, what can I start doing to be successful, right? To get the phone to ring, just having a sign and having a phone number, unfortunately in this day and age doesn't make the phone ring. You have to actively do something to create activity, right?
Hmm.
And that's where I go back to, like, I don't care what the marketing is, you've got to do some sort of marketing that creates activity for you to be successful. Um, and as you grow, that marketing has to continue to grow with you so that you can continue to be more successful. So for me, it was very early on. It was probably, maybe like my second year into the agency where I kind of just said, okay, I've got to figure out a way to create activity. And at the time, nobody was really doing direct mail. I mean, we're talking about, 22 years ago. Like, there wasn't a
Wow.
lot of direct mail out there. But I remember seeing a piece, and I told you one time, sometimes it's better to be the pirate than the pioneer. I remember seeing a piece from another carrier, and I thought, man, that's exciting. So I just contacted the agent, and said, hey, I saw this. I didn't tell him I was one of his competitors, but I simply just contacted him and said, hey, can you share the vendor with me? And then, he shared the vendor with me, and I started with that vendor, and, things were great. And then I've just kind of, shifted a little bit to where, I could find the vendor that, like I said, had those components, the exclusive, the innovative, and kind of a hands-off approach, because I don't want to have to do a lot. When you're running big volume, you don't want to have to sit there and you don't want to put a lot of effort into it, right? I just want to give somebody my money, and they do the rest, and the phone rings, and we sell a lot of business. That's what we're driving for.
And you'll know based on the numbers that you give them where these leads are coming from.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, for most direct mail vendors, right? I mean, I could speak for all of them because I've worked with a lot of them over the years. But for most direct mail vendors, I mean, you're basically marketing to a certain geographic area, a certain zip code, right? So yeah, you'll know where the leads are coming from, and I'll tell you, a lot of agents that I've talked to that are interested in direct mail, one of their objections may be, well, man, I'm in a small town, there's 2,000 people here. Like, what can I do? And I think, again, that's that vision of 15%, right? When I say 15%, you're only focused on your 15%. If I was in a small town USA, and I knew that there was a big metropolitan, an hour away, I'm not going to be scared to try to go create business an hour away from me, because people are buying insurance over the computer. They're buying insurance over the phone. Again, they just need somebody that says, hey, I can create that same solution for you, but give you a personal agent to interact with, and a common face and a common name. When you call, you deal with me or you deal with my staff. So, I think we've got to just change the mindset, right? Like, there's always a solution. Just, don't be so hung up on maybe your problem.
Yeah. And I think something you touched on earlier, I think was a great point, how you looked at your job as making that phone ring. You know?
I mean, that is the job of the agency owner, in my opinion. The agency owner's job, first and foremost, is to make the agency successful and to ensure the success of the staff. And how we do that is by finding the best opportunities and the best training for our staff to be successful. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
probably no different than what you do, right? Like, I'm assuming in your day-to-day operation, you're not writing a auto and home business or commercial business. You're trying to figure out ways to drive more business to the door to make your team more successful.
Yeah, that's really the only thing I'm thinking about is how to provide leads for my staff, and
Right.
then
I mean,
how to get more staff. That's really it.
well, and look, here's the thing, like, you know, if your staff is making a good wage, right, and they're getting paid a large amount of money, you don't have the same problem that a lot of other agencies are dealing with, where their staff are leaving and they have to constantly replace staff. So my opinion is tie your staff. It's kind of getting off subject a little bit, but tie your staff into the success of the agency, meaning, give them a bonus, based on how much they write, and I've seen your videos. I mean, you're good at that. I mean, the worst thing to have to do is replace a good staff person because you weren't paying them enough. And if
Mm.
you weren't paying them enough, it's probably because you weren't providing enough opportunities. So ultimately, it all circles back to marketing, right? If you're marketing and you're creating success in the agency, not only are you successful, but your staff successful, you're making more money, they're making more money, everybody's happy, right? It's very rare to find somebody that says, I want to leave the Kitajima agency or the McKamie agency and go make less money. That usually doesn't happen. The reason people usually leave is they're either underpaid or underappreciated,
Or they're not getting enough leads,
or they're not getting enough leads, right?
which
But again,
equals not getting enough, not making enough money.
yeah, but again, the job is hard enough, right? I mean, the hardest part of what we do, in my opinion, is finding great staff. So once you get a great staff person, make sure that you're doing everything you can to make them successful, because there's not a lot of unicorns running around out there.
Yeah, and the way I almost look at it is that our staff are the ones that are building our business for us.
Oh, there's
So
no doubt. I mean, they are the backbone of the agency, right? Like every time an agent steps on a platform to accept an award, you know, that's probably the first, if not the first, the second piece of recognition that needs to be passed out is, hey, thankful for the staff and all that they do, because ultimately it's you getting the award, it's me getting the award, it's another farmer's agent getting the award, but really the award belongs to all the men and women that are back in the agency that help create that success.
absolutely. And to give back to them, I think it is our obligation to make sure the opportunity is there at our agencies. And it just comes back right back down to marketing. Like, what are we doing for them to make sure they have the opportunity to make more money? What's the comp plan look like? What type of FTD are you generating for them? So yeah, in a way, I just kind of go back to just that's my job. That's how I look at things as agency owners. It's
Yeah, no, I think that should be all of our jobs ultimately.
some agents
Like
are kind of
sometimes
stuck
a
in
nickel holds up a dollar.
yeah. I think some agents kind of still look at, hey, my job is to sell insurance.
And I think when you're the only chef in the kitchen, let's just say you're a scratch agency, right? And it's just you, it's Dan. When you first open that agency, yes, you do everything. You turn the lights on, turn the lights off, answer the phone. You're wearing a bunch of hats, right? But we all want to get to that place to where we can call ourselves an agency owner. And to me, an agency owner is the person that's creating opportunities, not the person writing the policies. The reason there's not more farmers agency owners is because not everybody is equipped to do all that we do. I mean, for a lot of us, we're, running a small company, whether you've got 5 employees or you've got, 50 employees, I mean, there's some big agencies out there. We should all aspire to be agency owners. That's what we signed up for. That's what our talents and our abilities are that's where they lie.
Yeah, that's the evolution from becoming a sales agent to an owner. And that's a fun journey to be on.
Yeah, you want to promote yourself quickly, I'll tell you, because it's much more fun to be the one creating the opportunities. That's the exciting part of waking up every day is what can I do? And literally, that's probably why my brain never shuts off, because I'm constantly thinking, hey, what we're doing now is good, but what can I develop that goes good to great, right? That's where we all want to go. We want to go good to great. And then once you're on great, well, then you just press the gas pedal down and go as fast as you can. But, I think for a real entrepreneurial mind, your vision has to be, okay, hey, things are good, but how can I make it great? Things are great. How can I make it, greater? That appetite for success for most should never die. You should never be content, in my opinion, but that drives a lot of people crazy.
Yeah,
But I think
no.
that's where you get to run something that people stand back and say, how do you get there? Well, you get there by never stop having a vision.
Yeah, I kind of come to accept that I'll never be content, but There's nothing wrong with that. So how did you get that commercial side? Is that through direct mail too? Because that has grown significant since the last time we talked.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I mean, we still do a lot of direct mail on the commercial side. We've seen a lot of organic growth. We're very niche in what we do, right? Most of our stuff is transportation,
mhm.
which, is long haul trucks, towing, repo. We'll do very large strip centers, very large habitational buildings. But we've seen a lot of growth just in word of mouth. Like, hey, I went over here, man, they've got a great team. They're available. They take care of me. So yeah, while it might have started in direct mail, and that's still a piece of what we do, most of that has just been organic growth. And I mean, the retention ratio on commercial is, I would say 95%. I
Wow.
mean, so it's unlike the personal lines market because, once you have the client and you have all the carriers, why would they leave you? They only leave you because either they go out of business or they don't like you. So we try to keep them in business by making the insurance affordable. And, we try to keep them by making ourselves likable and valuable. And for a lot of them, we'll tell them we're your most expensive employee.
So your commercial producers, do you kind of have them only doing that, or do some of them also do personal lines too?
Now, so we've got in our office building, if you walked in, I call it the Great Divide. There's a hallway that divides one side from the other. And it's, we've got one half of our office literally on one side of the hallway is all commercial. And on the other side of the hallway, our in-staff office personnel is all personal lines. So the commercial side never crosses over to the commercial side, and vice versa. The personal lines never crosses over to commercial. Now, let's just say we had a lead problem one month where we weren't getting notifications of QR scans, and it was like 2 or 3 days backlog, which doesn't sound like a big problem. But when you're talking about thousands and thousands of pieces of mail going out and not getting communication that you had a QR response,
Hmm.
we had a large issue.
Hmm.
But what I found and what was beautiful is my commercial people said, what can we do to help? So they started contacting the people back and gathering basic information to put the quote together from a personal lines team. So very rarely will the two sides cross over. They refer business back and forth, but we really run it like two entities. Because my commercial people, they're very skilled and they're experts in what they do. But if you ask them about an auto and a home, I'm afraid they might give you bad intelligence. So, we really try to keep the two houses separated, but with the vision, if anybody needs help, everybody helps everybody.
Wow, that's great. Two separate teams, but still one team. Good team
Yeah,
attitude.
one vision, right? I
Yeah.
mean, and we celebrate success that way, right? It's not like we have a Monday meeting and it's, hey, let's talk about, just personal lines meeting, or, hey, we're going to talk about a commercial lines meeting. I mean, our Monday meetings are everybody in house, getting together and celebrating success.
Nice. Now, do the commercial agents, do they do better financially?
Yeah. I mean, I've got one commercial agent. I mean, he's been with me a long time. And when he first started, I mean, this will just tell you, I was trying to pay peanuts,
Hmm.
but I was ultimately not getting rock stars, right? But he
Yeah.
was he was just he was right out of college. I'd known him for a long time. He actually begged me for the job, and I was like, man, I don't know what we could do. I mean, we could work out together, but this is back when I first started. Remember, I didn't have a vision of what success looked like, so I brought him on, and I paid him $750 every 2 weeks. So a lot of agents are going to laugh about that, but last year the guy made over 300,000. So I mean, yes, the commercial team does very, very well.
Wow.
But it's also 18 years of he's been with me. He runs that whole team. I mean, he's basically me on the other side of the house. So but again, when you talk about employee retention, he's not going to up and leave and go work for Dan, because guess what? Dan's not going to be able to pay him that kind of wage starting out, right? So I try to make sure that my team is well compensated, especially the ones that are on the sales side. It's very important. Now I've had some salespeople become agents, which is fine. That's the vision. I want to train them up so that they can go and have their own success. But what I don't want is them leaving to go to work for another agency when they're a vital piece of my agency. And I don't ever want to work from a position of a defensive position, right? I don't want them to walk in here and say, hey, I got this other opportunity with Dan's office. They're going to pay me X. And then, what a lot of agents do is say, well, I can match that. Well, if I'm them, I'm saying, well, why weren't you paying me that to begin with if it was that easy?
Mm-hmm.
So I never want to have that conversation, and I don't ever have to have it, simply because I make sure they're well compensated. And guess what? When I ask them to, work extra hours or maybe to come in on a weekend, they're happy to do it because ultimately the more they sell, the more they make.
Yeah, it's such a good, it's so worth it. It's so worth it. So do you see sometimes some personal lines agents moving on to the commercial lines? Do you see some interchanging there as far as teams like moving to different departments?
I haven't had that on my team. I'm not saying that doesn't exist in other capacities, but I think it's very difficult to make the transition because you don't know what you don't know, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say you're one of our top personal lines producers, and I'm just going to use a round number. You've been here 5 years, you're making $100,000 a year, right? Um, do you really want to jump over to the commercial line side? And most of these people don't have that same vision you and I shared. Maybe they don't realize that everything they want is just on the other side of fear, right? That's the motto I live by. Everything you want in life is just on the right side of the fear. But you got to be willing to go through it to earn it, to get there. So I think the reason we don't see the crossover is simply that. Like, if you've been here 5 years and you're making $100,000, you don't want to go start from scratch and start being a commercial sales agent. And although it may only take you 3 years to get there,
You're
and
taking,
ultimately you may make 200,000. Most people, that are employees, they're not agency owners. They don't want to take that risk, right? But
yeah.
that's why there's not more agency owners out there, is because, what we do sometimes is calculated risk, right? You kind of got to lay it all on the line from time to time to see if it's what puts you over the edge.
Yeah, and sometimes, certain people, they don't have the situation that's going on in their life that can afford them to take that step backwards. Um, so
Well, I think that's a lot of agents too, right? Like, I
yeah.
mean, it gets back to marketing. Maybe every dollar you've made, you've spent, and you might have bought a BMW when you should have bought, a Honda.
Hmm. Or you
But,
should have bought more leads.
yeah, but what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
is I think the successful ones realize that ultimate success, right? Long-term success resides in, not doing as much for yourself personally early on when you probably could or you want to, and dumping all that money back into the agency to make sure that when you're 24 years into the business, or, whatever that number is, that you can go out and buy whatever you want.
I,
But it doesn't get that way unless you've got to be a little stingy in the beginning. And when I mean stingy, like, you can't, go out and buy all the things you want to buy as an early agency owner, and neglect the agency, because the most important thing you can do is grow it, and grow it fast.
so 24 years in, are you starting to spend more money on your personal life, or would you still consider yourself still putting everything you can back? And are you
Well, it
actually
depends
still,
on who you're asking. If
are
you're
you,
asking my wife, she says, hey, you live too conservatively. If I'm asking, if you're asking me, then I'm saying, maybe we're spending too much. But yeah, I mean, we've been blessed to be at a level to where, we're able to kind of do more, right?
Mhm.
I'm able to be involved in other things that are important to me. I've got 2 kids and they're growing up too fast, and one of the other great things about being an agency owner is you set your own schedule. So I can wake up at 5 and get off at 3 if I need to catch a ball game. But I never want to, I've just never got to the spirit to where I'm tired of coming into the office. Like, ultimately, I think it's important in a leadership position to be in front of the chariot, pulling the chariot, than to be sitting in the chariot having your employees pull you.
Mm. Yeah. And you love it, and I definitely relate to that. It's
It's kind
fun
of an
growing a team.
addiction, Dan. It's
It
kind of
really
an
is.
addiction.
Yeah, success is fun, and winning is fun. So, what is next for your agency, you think, Sammy? I mean, you've accomplished great things, but I still feel the hunger. When we brainstorm, your mind is going, a lot of different direction, and you come up with such great ideas. But what do you think will be the next game changer? Or is there such a thing? Or what is kind of on your mind right now as you want to take things to the next level?
Yeah, I love that next level. It's one of my favorite words. But yeah, I mean, that's what I spend the majority of my time thinking about, right? Is what is the next level? How do we get there? I mean, ultimately, um, I'm too young to retire, right? So I'm not thinking about retirement. I'm more acquisition minded. I'm more organic growth minded. I mean, obviously, what I think is going to happen is there's going to be, as a result of the turbulence in our space, you're going to see more acquisition opportunities as agents to maybe grow via an acquisition. I think that's one way to scale and get some immediate lift, or like I like to call a shot in the arm.
Mhm.
There's those opportunities that'll exist, and we'll obviously look at those. But I still think my money is best spent scaling and growing and trying to find different ways to continue to expand our reach in the agency. And by expanding our reach, I mean maybe growing into new territories. I don't want to be limited to one market because, if the Dallas Fort Worth market ever blows up, I want to have expertise in other markets that I can reach out to because, unless I haven't checked in a while, if you're licensed in one part of the state, you can write business in all parts of the state. So I think that's the next level is, maybe getting producers in different parts of the state so that we can grow our reach in different areas, because I do think presence is important. But I
Mhm.
think as we get more into this idea of remote operations, people are more, they're more content by doing business virtually, right? Like when I say virtually, I mean over the phone, over the email. I've already seen the shift. So I think the next scalability is, okay, get more producers in more areas outside of Dallas Fort Worth.
Hmm. Yeah, but I hear California is real tough, so definitely stay out of that area.
Yeah, well, I hear Texas is tough, so don't, maybe you personally stay out of this area.
That's exciting. Yeah, there's I've never really gone there to remote. How's that working out for you?
I always say it's not for everybody, right? Like, I've had employees in my office say, "Oh, I want to work remote." And while I was never a fan of it, COVID kind of forced us to think differently, right?
Hmm.
So it forced me to figure out, okay, how do I allow people to work remote but still have accountability? So, with our phone software, we can track productivity, right? We can track how many calls you took, when you logged in, when you logged out. If you wanted to micromanage, you can go listen to the calls. I mean, but ultimately, um, you know, I think sales is easy to monitor activity, right? It's kind of hard to, dream up sales. Like you either sell or you don't sell. And if
Hmm.
you're not selling, then I bet we could find out why. I think the hardest remote opportunities right now are for service people. But I would say, with the ability to have people accountable for the time they log in, the time they log out, and measure how much work they do, the idea of remote is easier and easier to think about, right? And it as a somebody who's always trying to hire great talent, uh, if I'm open to the idea of remote, well, then I can expand my reach as far as finding the best people, whether that's in, Dallas, Texas, or Denver, Colorado. If you can find the right talent and they're willing and ready to work, then I would not hesitate to hire somebody to work remote.
Yeah, it goes back to that 80, looking at the 85% again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the vision, right? Like, if
Hmm.
you don't remember anything else, remember the 85-15. Don't focus on the 15, think about the 85, because there's a real big world out there outside of our world.
Yeah, man, that's really well said. I think that's so true. I think we just always focus on what our problems are, what's happening with us, when there's so much other things to look at and opportunities when we look outside of our own little bubble. Man. Well said, Sammy. Well, I'm so excited for your future as an agency owner, marketing ideas. Oh, thank you so much. Well, email me the vendor that you use if you don't mind. Share with other agents because I love to share things that's working for other agents with our audience. But any closing words, anything I left off that you want to share to the viewers or who are listening and really look up to you and learn from you from these 2 episodes.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, we talked about the 85-15, right? That's just mindset. Again, I focus on the other 85% that's getting disrupted and is in turmoil, while not ignoring my 15, but not spending as much focus there, right? I think that's very important. Ultimately, I think whatever we focus on, we get full of, right? So maybe step back and ask yourself, when I wake up in the morning, what am I focused on? Am I focused on my problems or am I focused on the solution? And the very successful agents and really success in general comes from the people that are focused on the solution. And then, be a lawnmower, don't be afraid to just try to tackle that problem head on. Because sometimes it takes too much work and too much energy to try to go around it. And ultimately it just, leads to a lot of wasted time and effort. So, continue to seek wise mentors. I mean, you didn't get to the level you're at. I didn't get to the level I'm at by not being surrounded by great people. So surround yourself with great agents, seek the right counsel, and just continue to come in and, put your efforts and energies into being great.
Awesome. Well, yeah. Well, thank you for being a mentor for me. When it comes to great counsel, you're definitely someone I really value, and happy to hear that I was able to help you out with your operation too. And I think that's gonna be something that we're gonna continue to do. So, Sammy, thanks again for your time and for sharing all your wisdom. And let's keep running over these problems and finding a solution. We
All
need
right,
more.
hey, might have to be a trilogy at some point.
Yeah,
We'll settle on the sequel for now. The sequel is in wraps. We'll see if there's a trilogy.
there sure will be, and we'll see how big you are at that point because
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll check in. We'll check in.
10 million worth of growth in the last 3 years. That's amazing. So thanks again, Sammy, and we'll be keeping in touch. Till next time.
All right, Dan. See
All
you.
right.
Take care.
Thank you.